Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 22 Life's a one big flashback. I love you Naruto. Good night, she whispered softly before closing her eyes. And I love you too Kushi-chan. Good night, he whispered back to her as he too closed his eyes while Kushina had a light blush on her face. Him calling her by her name always made butterflies go crazy in her stomach. Meanwhile, Naruto started to reminisce about what had happened in this past month, him and Kushina passionately making love with each other as he lost his virginity, his training and what he was capable of doing now. Oh, the wreckage, May and almost everybody would be surprised tomorrow. Hee, their reactions would be worth dying for, he thought as he embraced Kushina's form closer to him, which made her smile as a small blush lit her cheeks while she snuggled into his warm chest, her fingers tracing circles on his skin as she reveled in his comforting and loving embrace. A stone expression dusted Naruto's face upon remembering the day when he had met his godfather. And boy was he shocked to see the legendary Sannin whom he respected the most, was his godfather. He had in the past read about Jiraiya and that how the Toad Sannin was a dead last just like him in the beginning, how their teams were strikingly similar and hence. Jiraiya had played a big role in his self-motivation which often pushed him for the better. He had met the guy the day after he kissed Kushina. And the first thing he felt was pride and happiness, but after some time, merely after seconds did he realize that this was the man who was supposed to look after him. Who was supposed to ensure his safety rather than not even seeing his face. And as expected by Kushina and much to the fear of Jiraiya, he had given him a grin, an empty grin which had made Jiraiya flinch and said, finally got the time Sorry Jiraiya-sama. But the damage has already been done and I've everything I need right in my ka-san here. He had almost spat, a cold expression gaining progression on his face while Kushina just had looked at him sadly, a blush on her face at his words while Jiraiya too sighed, oh well. The old Sannin did expect this to happen. And after that, Naruto had pretty much completely ignored him and refused to talk to him, even declining his offer of training. Meanwhile Kushina had given him his space and had completely supported his decision and had only said one thing to Jiraiya. I'm sorry Jiraiya. But you brought this upon yourself, and you knew this would happen, he has every right to do so after all. But be patient, Naru-kun has a very kind heart, I know he'll eventually forgive you, until then, keep trying you Bakotbane, she had said while grinning smugly which had made his eyebrows twitch in irritation. Though Kushina didn't let Naruto's training slip even one bit. His taijutsu training sessions always left him sore, but the real killer was always that once-in-a-week torture session where she would mercilessly kick his ass just like the first day resulting him in becoming a live mummy. He had began to read sealing books Kushina had given him with the help of his almost 1,000 shadow clones and his progress went at rates which astounded even Kushina and the Ice Queens, who sometimes popped in to help him in training. Though the large intake of information should have given him intense headaches but his chakra was the key in immensely decreasing that factor. And coming to the summoning contracts, he now remembered that day on which Kushina had given him her own contract. Flashback. The day after announcement of Kushina's arrival, Konoha, Forest of Death. So Ka-san, please tell me which summoning contract I'm getting, he almost screamed in excitement while Kushina watched him with an amused expression. Calm down Naru-kun, she ushered while giggling making him pout, he sure was acting all funny and childish today. Naruto's eyes danced with excitement as he saw her unsealing a scroll before opening a large scroll on which were thousands of names written. Him noticing that all of them being of the Uzumaki clan, on which the latest name was that of Kushina. This Naru-kun is the summoning contract for elemental dragons. One of the strongest contracts around which was also a reason, besides our sealing capabilities making us feared in the world, she said with a smirk while Naruto's eyes twinkled with excitement as he gazed at the scroll, before a look of confusion crossed his face as he lifted his head. Elemental, I've read about dragon summoning contracts. But are you implying that there are other dragons besides the ones who emit fire? He said with widened eyes while Kushina just nodded at him with a smile. There are other types of dragons too, proving the common myth of dragons only capable of emitting fires wrong, she said as he nodded quietly, taking in everything she had said. Now, to sign this summoning contract, Bite the thumb of your hand which you would use for summoning and write your name here, she said while indicating the blank spot right to where her name was written. Slowly. His eyes were scrunched in concentration as he wrote his name while Kushina watched him write with an approving smile. His calligraphy is really good. The fluency of his strokes, even with his fingers, is astounding, thus creating seals should be easy for him. Well, that's an Uzumaki for you, she thought with a smirk before noticing that Naruto had completed writing his name and was looking at her in confusion, waiting for her to speak. Well, for the next part. Put your blood on each of your fingertips and imprint them below your name, she spoke with an embarrassed blush as he nodded before biting his thumb again on which the cut had already been healed. Pressing his fingers delicately but with enough pressure, he retreated his hand to see the fingerprints as well as the mark glowing blue for a moment before fading back. Turning his head, he raised his eyebrows, asking Shina about what had happened. Well, Naru-kun, that was the scroll testing if you were an Uzumaki or not. Basically, it was checking your calligraphy, and Uzumaki has a top-notch level of calligraphy, which is one of the main reasons that we are excellent seal masters, and if someone else tries to write, whose calligraphy is usually not par with our clan, then the name simply fades, she said with pride in her voice while Naruto just looked at her blankly. Then what about those exceptional seal masters who too have good calligraphy, he muttered. It's not a complete defense, Naru-kun. And besides, even if that person does manage to sign this contract, then the summons would cancel the contract when they come to know about him. It's just an initial defense mechanism, she said with a sigh as Naruto gave back the large scroll to her which she sealed back. Now here are the seals. Use your rinnegan so that you can at least know how much chakra I'm putting, she said before biting on her thumb, drawing blood, going through a couple of hand seals required for summoning before she slammed her right hand on the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning jutsu, she spoke as black tendrils of black-colored seals shot out from the point of impact before a puff of smoke appeared around her hand. Watching the slowly clearing smoke, his eyes widened when he saw a blue dragon around Kushina's height, its eyes light red with black slits, 2 mass tendrils on its nose, its teeth razor sharp, 3 claws in each hand, 2 large scaled wings, his tail swinging wildly as it looked around, a mixture of confusion but mostly surprise on its face. Overall, the reptile looked quite intimidating with his human-sized posture and its steamy breathing. Who summoned me? You? It asked with a deep voice, which sounded like a growl when its eyes settled on Naruto, as if irritated by being summoned by this stranger. I summoned you here, Ryu, said Kushina with a smile, but her voice had an authoritative tone to it. Snapping his head on hearing a familiar voice which he hadn't heard since 13 years ago, slitty eyes widening to massive proportions as he gazed at her in stunned silence. Kushina. He trailed in immense surprise while his elongated jaw hung open. It's a long story, Ryu. I'll tell you later, she said with a serious expression while the dragon nodded dumbly with her. This is my son, she said with as much pride in her voice as she could muster while pointing towards Naruto, who had a dead serious expression on his face, while on the inside he was a bit nervous. Meanwhile Ryu looked at Naruto with a critical eye, as if studying him, searching his soul while Naruto too stared straight into its light red eyes, his azure blue eyes getting colder by the second. However, Naruto was having a nagging feeling, like his mind was being read. The same feeling he felt when Ino's father Yamanaka Inoichi had went through his mind to check any mental instabilities due to the seal or the village's behavior towards him. He's reading my mind. He spoke alarmingly before he heard Ayumi's soft voice. Calm down, Naruto-kun. I know Ryu wouldn't do any harm. I know him from when I was sealed in Kushina. He has certain unique abilities amongst his species. He belongs to the water dragon species and emits strong water jets or laser-like attacks. Can be used for scouting purposes as well as aerial attacks because of its ability to fly, has the ability to read other people's mind just by looking into their eyes. Well, there are other abilities too, but let's save them for later, she lectured while Naruto just nodded inwardly when he felt that feeling receding away while he was surprised to see sadness in was that pity in the dragon's eyes. This greatly angered him. He needed no one's pity, he had enough of those stares already. Just as he was about to growl out to the summon, it spoke. Uzumaki Naruto. Ria's voice strong, but having a bit of melancholy in it before he continued. You truly are the child of prophecy. I guess the vision that Fuku Ryu-sama saw continues to hold its significance. The first child of Uzumaki Kushina, wielder of the rinnegan and holder of the strongest Biju. Indeed you are the chosen one, he said with a strong gruff voice while Kushina nodded with him whereas Naruto just looked at him sharply. It's Ayumi. Not Kyuubi, he said while Ryu stared at him calculatively. What does it matter to you boy? This is a Biju we're talking about. They are huge masses of evil chakra, nothing but mindless monsters. He again spoke with what sounded to be a bit of growl whereas Kushina looked at him with a surprised expression but kept quiet. Meanwhile Naruto narrowed his eyes at the summon. What did he mean that Ayumi was just a Biju, a mindless monster? How dare he say that? Listen you, I don't care who you are, but don't you dare call Ayumi-chan a monster again. Ever, he said with a booming voice of his own, his pupils becoming slitted as he clenched his fists, his anger so much that it surprised even Kushina and Ayumi. Naruto-kun, trailed Ayumi with a blush, he was defending her. Her. Leaning down closer, Ryu leaned its head down to Naruto's level, and Naruto could have sworn that the dragon was smirking. You've got guts boy. And that's all it will take in this world of shinobi. Sorry though for insulting Ayumi, she's a friend of mine and I just wanted to see your reaction. Seems you two are very close to each other, he said with amusement in his eyes while Naruto's anger immediately went down the drain which was replaced by a blush on his face, while inwardly Ayumi too was blushing madly. Shut up, he said in embarrassment while Kushina giggled at him whereas Ryu adopted a serious expression on his face. Inwardly though, he was still coming to terms with Naruto's memories. I can't believe this child Shaw suffered so much, these villagers are true monsters. And Suiryu-sama would himself flip when he comes to know that an Uzumaki has finally activated the rinnegan. It has been centuries since our species has even heard about it. This boy, he has something special about him, he thought while observing Naruto. Just by looking at his life he could tell that the boy was really something to have withstood all that. Alright Naru-kun. Now you try summoning a dragon, for now just use your normal chakra, she said while he adopted a confused expression on his face. What do you mean? Normal chakra is always used for summoning, right? Are you saying that this summoning contract accepts other types of chakra too? He said with a thumb under his chin while Ryu had an approving expression, if that was even readable that is. Even on the brain's side, this boy is something else, he thought while Kushina smiled at his question before answering him. Hi, you're right Naru-kun, this is by far the only known elemental summoning contract in the world. Here, Ryu is a water-type dragon summon, she said while Naruto nodded as Ayumi had already informed him of that. I poured water-natured chakra into the summoning technique and hence a water type was summoned. If I would have used normal chakra, a non-elemental dragon would have appeared which are generally weaker than elemental ones but good for scouting and easier to summon, she said making his eyes widen as he processed what she had said. Then if I use for example, wind-natured chakra for summoning, then a dragon capable of performing wind attacks would be summoned. And if I use like ice chakra, then... He trailed, his eyes widening as he saw Kushina winking towards him. Take a wild guess baby, she said with a grin as Naruto's hands started to shake with excitement as he promptly cut his thumb and the next thing Kushina and Ryu heard was Kuchio's no jutsu, flashback end. Present time. Hee. Ka-san and Ria's faces were to laugh upon when I straight away summoned Qinglong. Even the poor thing himself looked shocked beyond belief that he was finally summoned after so many years, he thought with a quiet chuckle while he noticed that Kushina had fallen asleep and was embracing him tightly to her as he kissed her forehead making her smile in sleep, mumbling something incoherent making him smile. Walking further up the memory lane, a sad smile replaced his smiling expression as he remembered how he had met Ino that day. Flashback. Today, he had decided to change the scenario for once and was looking through a dense foliage for a place to train when he heard some sounds coming, and from their nature he could tell that someone was training. Though his eyes widened when he heard a loud feminine scream erupt from where the sounds were coming. Usually, he would have just passed by as it could be a random kunoichi training but that voice seemed familiar and besides, his heart didn't have the power to just ignore somebody in pain. Releasing the gravity seals which Kushina had applied on him, he dashed full speed through the bushes, his eyes widening when he saw a heavily bruised form of Ino with several deformed kunai and shuriken laying on the dusty ground everywhere he could see. There were several slash marks on almost all the trees while some of the trunks had fist-sized craters. What the hell she's been doing? He thought with a frown as he saw a heavily breathing and a sweaty Ino laying in the middle of it all. Quickly dashing to by her side, he bent down and started to inspect her injuries while she jerked back in surprise but tensed when she realized that it was Naruto. Naruto-kun. She mumbled with her breathing hitched in her throat as she gazed into his concerned eyes, a stunned expression on her face. He's concerned for me, thought Ino in surprise as she spoke again, blood seeping down her forehead which Naruto wiped with the sleeve of his black sweatshirt making her blush a bit. Naruto-kun. You. She trailed in exhaustion as she continued to pant. Quiet Ino, said Naruto in a steel tone making her flinch as he started to apply his chakra to her body, encasing her whole body in a white glow due to his special chakra. Now would you mind telling me what were you planning to do here? He asked or rather growled, getting angry at her. After witnessing Ino's change and the determination in her eyes to prove herself just like Hinata in the preliminaries, he had somewhat forgiven her. And besides they were just children back in the academy bullying each other, so he held no grudge towards her. Yeah, there was always this bitter taste regarding her in his mouth, now that had changed just like towards Sakura. Ino was in the Rookie 9 just like him, he cared for her not just as a fellow shinobi, but also as a person. He knew that she had potential and couldn't deny the fact that she was cute and beautiful. Sure she acted immature at times, but that is expected considering that she was only 13 years old, it was only him who had grown mentally at tremendous rates. And besides he just knew that she would turn into a beautiful woman when they would get older. But that was besides the point cause he couldn't imagine Ino being interested in him. I was just training, she stuttered while he sighed in frustration. Yeah, training in the art of killing yourself, right? Why are you pushing yourself so hard? He said making her lower her head. You might not know this Naruto-kun. But when everybody saw what you were really capable of. All of the genins have pushed themselves much deeper in training, crossing their limits, even Sakura, Shikamaru and Choji too, and you would be surprised how much stronger everyone would be when you see them at the finals, she spoke while rubbing her left sore arm whereas Naruto just nodded at her. Well that's good then isn't it? He said with a smirk while Ino snapped her head in surprise. What do you mean? It would just mean extra competition, she said in confusion while Naruto just lightly flicked her forehead making her pout. Ino. You have to see farther than that, if I don't become Chunin this time. Then there's always next time but the fact that you all are pushing yourselves increases Konoha's military strength. We guys getting stronger would mean Konoha's defense getting stronger and hence we can protect the villagers better. And I'm proud of myself that I was able to motivate you guys. That's what a Hokage does. Doesn't he Ino? He said while grinning at the last part as Ino just gazed him in a whole new light. Naruto, she thought while staring at him in admiration, blushing when he caught her staring at him. Sorry, she spoke quietly with a sigh while Naruto just raised an eyebrow at her. What's wrong with her Ayumi-chan? She kinda looks down, he consulted her, hearing a sigh from Ayumi. Naruto-kun, she's majorly depressed here, so don't go all flammy on her. She needs comfort right now, okay, said Ayumi with understanding in her voice while Naruto inwardly nodded with her. Look Ino, I'm sorry for bursting like that before. And not just for now, but also for how I behaved back in the forest. I think that we both got off the wrong foot, so why don't we start over, nay? He asked with a smile making Ino blush cutely as she too smiled back. Here, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, it's nice to meet you, he said after extending his hand before she did the same. I'm Yamanaka Ino, she spoke with a hesitant smile as they both shook hands with each other. Wow. Her hands are soft, smooth, just like Ka-san's, he thought with a pink tint on his cheeks while Ino too blushed as she felt his warm skin. Alright, so let's take you to the hospital, he said with his foxy grin making her blush increase in intensity before he suddenly, out of nowhere picked her up bridal style. Ino could swear that she had never developed such a darker shade of red, a surprised expression on her face as she gazed at Naruto in astonishment, who just gave her a smile before he took for dashing full speed towards the hospital, making a feminine scream escape her due to his speed. She clutched to him tighter while he just chuckled to himself. Well, I guess things are looking up this time. I hope Ino and I can be good friends, he said inwardly before his eyebrows started twitching when he heard Ayumi giggling perversely. Or maybe something more, Naruto-kun, she purred seductively, making him blush as he chose to remain quiet while Ino stared at him in confusion. Is he blushing? Flashback end. He smiled to himself as he now thought of how Ino and he were close to each other, not romantically mind you, but they were really close and were best friends. But, somehow strangely, I don't find it weird to view Ino as one of my romantic interests, he involuntarily said inwardly when he heard a frustrated sigh. I'm telling you, you have a crush on her, and she has more than a crush on you, Naruto-koi, said our familiar furry tenant, her voice as soft and angelic as ever, making his heart soothe every time he heard her voice, even when she was angry or frustrated at him. But I don't think so. What if she still likes Sasuke? He thought with scrunched up eyebrows while Ayumi just facepalmed herself and settled to keep quiet. You show him a cool technique, he'll learn it like a sponge, and when it comes to a woman's heart, he sure is a baka, she thought while Naruto's thoughts again randomly started to wander as he now remembered how he had met Kin and Temari. He was injured, well more than injured you could say, because of Kushina's weekly torture session, and had just settled for roaming around the village that day. On Kushina's announcement, Hana had told him that she was in a very bad mood when the villagers had started asking her for the demon annihilation attacks or something. And he was shocked to hear that she had straight out yelled, well, actually threatened that if anyone dared come near Naruto or harm even a speck of him, they'll get a very bitter piece of her. The villagers' reactions were different. Some were angry or enraged, which was in case of most of the retired shinobi and elder civilians, but it had created a doubt in the younger civilian's mind as to why she would be protecting the Kyuubi incarnation. And he was even more shocked that some had even switched sides when Kushina had told them that he was not a demon, but just a jailer who was protecting all of them. That he should be considered a hero. After that, the younger ones, especially the teenagers, had started considering him a hero and even going as far as to oppose their parents and relatives. It was a huge blow to the villagers when Kushina had told them that she herself was a Jinchuriki, and they couldn't deny the fact that she had never ever harmed anyone in Konoha and had rather protected it while keeping her life on the line every time the village needed her. Kushina had told him herself that she didn't want the villagers or anyone else to know that he was her son except the ones who were close to her and him, such as Sume, Hiyashi and other people. The reason? She just wanted their mother-son relation to be kept secret until he got more stronger, well, strong enough to at least defend himself against a cage-level shinobi, which he was clearly far away from at that time. So while ruffling around the village, he got occasional smiles which made him felt really strange, sometimes children surrounding him for his autograph, for he was keeping the meanie Kyuubi away from them while getting glares as usual too. But he could feel Ayumi's sadness whenever she was called a monster, Kyuubi and other names. It really hurt him, but he couldn't just tell anyone that he was talking to her, that he was her lover. The villagers would probably think that he was taken over and again go on a rampage like before. But he never hesitated in getting in his mindscape and kiss her mind out, cuddling with her, hugging her tightly to him as he showed her how much he loved her. Now, as he was roaming around with his bandaged lower body along with his forehead, he was also getting concerned looks which he just returned by grinning foxily, making their worries go away. As he had exited the populated area, he had caught Kin and Temari training vigorously, something which he hadn't expected from them, from a kunoichi especially, for they were pushing themselves to the ground. And he could still remember the bright smiles on their faces when they had seen him standing there as they sparred with each other. And how their faces immediately grew concerned over me when they saw me all bandaged up like a mummy, he thought with a quiet chuckle. He could still vividly remember Kin's face as she lunged at him and hugged him to death, repeatedly saying, "I missed you so much, where were you, baka?" And he couldn't deny, he was a baka for not meeting her for so long. Kin and him had created a special bond between themselves during the second part of the Chunin exams, and he considered her very precious to him, and had vowed to make her life much better. He had already planned to talk with Gigi about reinstating her as a possible Konoha ninja, but was disappointed when the Hokage had refused his request, saying that they couldn't just snatch shinobi of other villages. But that didn't mean he backed down. He had begun to daily check up on her, for he had a suspicion that Orochimaru was somehow connected to the Sound Village and kept her safe from her abusive teammates, whom he had threatened specifically in his most demonic voice, that if they ever touch her in any way, he would personally castrate them. And somehow, things between Temari and him were tense. He could tell that she was hiding something, like she was under pressure. They two grew close to each other during the month, but he knew that something was bad going to happen. She was hiding something big. And that fact had motivated him to train harder, while Kin and him had gotten really much closer, and now they were officially dating, just like he was dating Hinata, Kurenai, Anko, Hana, Yugao, and sometimes Ayumi too. Kushina and him had just settled for cuddling with each other at nights and occasional sex either when he was in the mood or she herself, and mind you that it was tortuous to withstand her seduction. It was nigh impossible for any straight man. Oh, and that brought the happiest memory of the month, that night. That night, it was truly heaven, he thought with a blush as he kept playing with her strands of hair. Flashback about mid-month of training. Konoha, Naruto's new apartment. Lemon warning. Crash. Naru-kun, Kushina moaned into the kiss as Naruto wildly kissed her, pushing her back against the wall while the plate in which Naruto had eaten fell off the table. It was just another harsh day of training. Both of them had come late at their new apartment, which they had acquired almost 2 weeks ago. It was a regular routine for them to eat Kushina's self-made dinner, which Naruto found himself addicted to, and then they would settle for kissing each other. Sometimes it was sensual, passionate, filled with love, and sometimes it was wild, heated and lust-filled, but they had never taken things far, often leaving a hungry and a frustrated Kushina, and the frustration was getting to Naruto too, thus their wild kissing, as if they were really hungry for each other. "Ka-san, you're so beautiful, I love you," he said in between his vigorous kissing as Kushina too kissed him back with the same amount of passion, if not more, for she too was wanting him. It had to be tonight. "Oh Naru-kun, you're turning me on, show hutch," she said breathlessly as they tongue wrestled with each other, their lips and tongue melting into each other, the room filling with the intoxicating smell of their arousal as they involuntarily started to undress each other, never leaving each other's lips. After some time, he left her lips, which were red, courtesy of him kissing her, into the oblivion. He leaned forward further and whispered, "I want you, Ka-san. Right now, right here, tonight," his throaty hoarse voice sending shivers down her spine, tingling her ear as she moaned, her eyes filled with lust, love and passion. Grabbing his head, she again began to make out with him heatedly, fervently tasting each other's moist cavern, which tasted of ramen, making them hungry all the more. Meanwhile, if Jiraiya had taken a peek inside Naruto's mindscape, he would have died of nosebleed, for we find Ayumi masturbating, moaning Naruto's name as she imagined him doing all that to herself. Oh well, her time would come too. As they continued to kiss passionately, Naruto's hands slid down to her back and started massaging her ass, a throaty moan escaping her lips, which he suppressed down into the kiss as he continued to grope and occasionally pinch her butt cheeks. Deciding that they were going further today, he picked her up by her butt and started to slowly move towards the bed as Kushina and him continued to kiss, which was turning out to be their longest make-out session until now, her long hair reaching past her plump ass. Putting her on the soft king-sized bed, they both continued to kiss for a while before parting from the kiss, breathing heavily as they gazed at each other with love in their eyes combined with lust and passion for each other. Looking her down and up, his mouth went dry as he stared at her vulnerable but extremely sexy and cute form, for she too was staring at him while panting heavily, the moon shining upon her partially sweaty but shiny skin in the dark room, making her look like a goddess to him. "Oh Ka-san, you look so beautiful. I'm gonna make you mine today," he said huskily, making Kushina whimper in desire for him. Then, take me Naru-kun, hurry up, I want you," she said while breathing heavily as Naruto leaned down on her with a hungry look in his eyes as he started to trail kisses on her face, her forehead, her closed eyes, her cheek, her nose, her lips, her chin. He didn't dare leave anything as she squirmed under his kisses, rubbing his back tenderly while he nibbled on her ear, making her moan. Riding down, he reached down to her neck, upon which he lashed upon and placed fervent kisses while Kushina, who was breathing heavily, her skin sweaty, tilted her head sideways to give him more access to her skin, which Naruto found extremely delicious and intoxicating. Nibbling on her neck, occasionally biting it, Extracting moans from her, he gave several hickeys to her neck as she moaned in approval of the mind-blowing pleasure he was giving her. Oh my Kami, he's making me feel so good so early. Naru-kun, what would happen when we get to the main deal? She thought in anticipation as pleasurable chills continued to surge through her body. You are mine, Ka-san. You'll always be mine. Say it, Ka-san. I want to hear from you too, he said with a smirk while Kushina whimpered from lack of contact of his lips on her skin. I'm yours, Naru-kun. I will forever be. I love you so much. You're the only one I desire and need in this world, she said after taking a long breath, arousing Naruto further. His eyes widened when he saw some white yellowish liquid escaping her erect nipples. Ka-san, this, he said in confusion while Kushina just smiled at him. It is something which I've been dying to feed you, Naru-kun, something which I always wanted to feed Yutbane. But now you're all grown up. Still though, would you like to drink your mommy's milk? She said with a sweet smile while Naruto blushed at her words as he stared hungrily at her breasts. He had read about lactation, and knew that if the milk was not fed, it would hurt the mother in the process, and that he couldn't possibly let happen. Itadakimasu, he whispered, making Kushina giggle a bit as he lapped on her breasts, his mouth watering for the feast in front of him. Kneading her left breast with his left one, he started to suck on her other breast as he hungrily drank her milk, while the other mound sprayed small jets of milk. Kushina was moaned in unbelievable pleasure, squirming under his mind-boggling ministrations as he continued to suckle on her plump D-cup mounds, creating suction making her moans louder. Naruto, hurry up, put it in, she said, her eyes closed in pleasure as Naruto smirked at her, moving his other idle hand and started massaging her wet clit, also noticing that her pussy was shaved and had a very enticing shade of pink. Kushina arched her back in pleasure as she pushed Naruto's head deeper into her tits while Naruto continued to massage her moans melody to his ears as he gave full attention to her kneading breasts and a starving pussy. Pushing his 2 fingers deeper into her hole, he started massaging her moist insides, making her moans louder. Ah, yes, Naruto. Yes. Don't stop, please, keep doing it, more, she almost yelled breathlessly while Naruto was a bit taken aback by the feeling her wet inner walls were inducing in him through his 2 fingers. Wow, it's like they are pulling me in further, contracting around me, he thought with amazement as he left her breasts for now much to her displeasure and continued to watch her pussy dripping with fluids, his hand going in and out rhythmically while her inner walls too matched the pleasurable motion of his wet fingers. Kushina was having familiar feeling of a pending release as she too started moving her hips along his fingers, desperate for a release now, especially when Naruto was the one doing it to her. Naru-kun, I'm coming, she screamed into the nirvana, her pleasure meter hitting the roofs, eyes almost rolling back as she released her honey juices on Naruto's face, who watched mesmerized, amazed at this natural phenomenon as he took a lick of his wet fingers and his lips. Strangely, it tastes good, and I dare say it's better than ramen, but the smell, it's so intoxicating, he thought when he heard Ayumi scream, making him sweat drop. Great, she too has cummed. The pervert just couldn't resist it, could she? Oh man, why is she moaning my name? He thought with a heavy blush as he heard Ayumi moaning his name before he zoomed out to the panting goddess in front of him, who was glowing in the after effects of a mind-blowing release. Naru-kun, it was amazing, said Kushina with a smile while Naruto just looked at her with a confused expression. Did that really felt that great? He said with an innocent expression, making Kushina just want to ride him there till the morning. Oh baby, you don't have any idea, she said with a smile while Naruto smiled back at her. Well, if you felt that good, then I'm happy, he said with a grin on his face, his honest tone making Kushina's already unconditional love skyrocket for him. He cares for me so much, she thought as a comical lone tear slipped out of her half-lidded eyes. Ayumi here, had given him, or rather had taught him about sex. He was having these urges for some time now, and she knew that it was important for him to know what was happening to him. It was difficult, yes, with his constant blush which was easily matching the ex-Hinata's one, but she had gone into great detail and told him what were the active turn-on common points for most of the women, but he still had doubts if doing all that would pleasure a woman, and he was a bit skeptical that she had felt so good, though the look on her face was telling another story. Naru-kun, make me yours, make your Ka-san yours forever, she said, still breathing heavily, now ready for the main dish while Naruto too understood what she was saying. Meanwhile Kushina's eyes were wide as she gazed at the size of his hardened cock, her arousal skyrocketing at seeing his hard meat which was about to ravish her insides. Aligning his dick with her moist, ready to go, pussy, he had a nervous expression on his face as he looked at Kushina, innocent care lurking in his love and lust-filled eyes as he stared into Kushina's violet eyes, doubts filling his earlier confident mind. Ka-san, are you sure this would make you feel good? Wouldn't it hurt you? He said while Kushina just rubbed his cheeks tenderly as her other hand started massaging his penis, a groan escaping him as Kushina smirked coyly at him. Try me Naru-kun, cause this would be something unlike you've ever experienced pleasurable, said Kushina with a seductive smirk before nodding at him as she guided his rock-hard stick into her starving pussy, both of them gritting their teeth as his member finally entered her moist cavern, her inner walls squeezing as now his dick was fully inside of her while Kushina moaned in pleasure. Oh yes, her moans becoming louder while Naruto had his eyes widened, his expression showing immense surprise over the astounding pleasure he was receiving. The way her inner walls were squeezing around his member, almost made him cum. This is amazing, it's unreal. Her insides are playing with my penis, tingling it, he thought as he started to move, the warm slick friction sending thunderbolts of pleasure to course through both of their bodies as he started to move in and out of her. Oh my, this is amazing. Naru-koi, you are amazing Dadbane, she said in her panting raspy voice while Naruto's eyes were clenched shut in pleasure. This was something he was definitely not expecting. He continued to move in and out of her as a steady pace started to develop between them. Kushina too started to move her hips in rhythm with his motion, increasing their pleasure as Naruto was groaning in pleasure which were mixing with the loud moans Kushina was making. Kushina-chan, it feels so good, he hissed, his voice hoarse while Kushina's heart again leapt when he called her by her name. Both of them now picking pace with each other as Naruto now supported his weight with one hand while his other one began to rub and pinch her nipples, his mouth tasting her delicious milk. This is so good. Naru-koi, call me again, my name, she whispered but Naruto had clearly heard it. Kushi-chan, I love you, he said as they continued to fuck each other, lewd sounds being produced as their skins slapped against each other mixing with the slimy sounds of her fluids along with their moans and groans. Again, Naru-koi. Again, she said as Naruto continued to pinch her nipples before he started to kiss her neck, both of their skins now sweaty. Kushi-chan, Kushina-chan, Kushi-hime, he mumbled repeatedly, placing tender kisses with occasionally nibbling on her delicious milk-creamy skin, each time hearing her name by him making her heart flutter wildly as they continued to move against each other, their pace now much faster than before. Ka-san, something is coming out. I think I'm coming, said Naruto in a loud voice as he increased his pace furthermore while Kushina too was nearing her release. Naruto-koi, me too, let's come together, kiss me Sochi, she moaned loudly as Naruto immediately complied gladly and kissed her passionately, their tongues wrestling with each other, Kushina's inner walls contracting around his cock as they came together. I see you mmmmIIIINNNGGGG, both screamed as they released into each other, their orgasms hitting them in lightning waves as they held each other tighter. Kushina's eyes had rolled back as she felt his warm fluid cum fill her completely, both of them feeling heavenly pleasure as they basked in the feeling of an amazing orgasm. Naruto-koi, I love you so much, whispered Kushina, after several minutes when she had recovered from an all-high pleasurable release, their breathing now much even while Naruto's head rested on her D-cup breasts which were acting like pillows. Very comfortable pillows, a fond smile on his face as he softly rubbed his head against her mounds making an inaudible moan escape her lips. And I love you too Ka-san, he said as if in daze while Kushina fondly rubbed his back head, playing with his spiky locks with him too rubbing her thighs tenderly. Lifting his head up, he grinned mischievously at her which made her a bit nervous and excited for some reason. Ready for another round Ka-san? He asked with a grin making her eyes widen. Why you can't be serious, tomorrow we have to train, no, and Naru-kun, she moaned as he started to rub her nipple with his fingers, pinching them while he placed kisses on her neck, nibbling on her skin. Still no, he said with his foxy grin, her heart melt at the sight. Oh baby, moaned Kushina before grabbing his head, a hungry expression on her face with love and lust-filled eyes, She pulled him in and started to make out with him, preparing for another round. Flashback end. Present time, lemon ends. Alright kids, you can come out now. Oh crap, I'm all hard now, he thought before chuckling at the fact that they had had sex 2 more times, each time Kushina refusing him before giving in when he just kissed her passionately. And from then on, they frequently spent nights intimately with each other. Other than that, he did had sex with Ayumi once, when she had straight out demanded after coming out of the seal. He loved her very much too, and couldn't deny her, for he too was wanting her for some time now and was probably as desperate as her. Other than that, he had gotten very close to Anko and Kurenai, making out with them on many occasions, though he had kissed Hinata and Kin too, which were mostly sensual, love-filled. But with Yugao and Hana, he didn't take things too early and was currently dating them with occasional pecks here and there and constant hugging. He knew though, with Ayumi telling him obviously, that how much they were wanting him with their blushes and all, but didn't got the time for anything else with his constant training and all. So the month had mostly gone with him training his ass off, and the techniques Jiraiya, Kushina and Kakashi taught him, the way they trained him to the ground, he was sure to leave everyone's jaws hanging off their hinges by the time he was done with the exams. So the party begins tomorrow, and I do have this feeling that something big is gonna happen, he thought with a grim expression before closing his eyes, ready to tackle anything that would come his way. Time skip. Next day. Konoha's main event stadium. 10 a.m. Now that I've explained the rules, would Hyuga Hinata, Sabaku no Kenkuro and Hyuga Neji step forward? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.